Hello and welcome to Two Guys on Two Coasts. He's Clint and I'm Phil. Thanks for hanging out with us. We have a guest. Clint, what do we say about the conversation with you and Fred?
Wow. Wow. It was a 2-0 changeup. I didn't see it coming. Not really, but kind of.
First, I want to talk about Jackie Robinson, his impact on you, on me, on the sport that we both love, baseball, and on our culture, because Jackie Robinson deserves that. And Jackie Robinson has impacted our culture. If I were to pick the four most important people in the United States the last century, Jackie Robinson would probably have to be the first. Because most people think of how Martin Luther King Jr. impacted Jack. It's actually the opposite. He was a decade before MLK, and Martin has often said that he drew a great deal of inspiration from Jackie first when he was still a teenager. So let's talk about where in the number 42, Jackie Robinson in culture, baseball, and in our lives. Go ahead.
Well, I'm so under. I'm not. I think we're an expert to speak on Jackie. However, what his impact has had on the African American players that I've had.
Ooh.
When I think back, really in Pittsburgh, Josh Harrison, Andrew McCutcheon, LaTroy Hawkins in Colorado, just to name three quickly. But the impact of his service, if you flip over a ball card, you see the record of service. If you had the ball card for his life, you flip it over that record of service. I was listening in the Isotopes ball game yesterday that our radio announcer actually gave me information on Jackie I didn't have and told me the trials and tribulations, the time in between, not all the other sports besides baseball, but then the work stoppage and all the other stuff that he's had to overcome. And I was watching a baseball game and getting a history lesson on Jackie Robinson in the back. And it made me go home to the hotel last night before I flew into Spokane today. And I read everything I could that I hadn't read before. But I grabbed a quote last night that I had never read. And you can say what you want about the internet, hunt good, find good, hunt bad, find bad. I found some good last night. I found some gold. But this quote, and I shared it today, was in Jackie's words. Today, Negroes play on every big league club and in every minor league. With millions of other Negroes in other walks of life, we are willing to stand up and be counted for what we believe in. In baseball or out, we are no longer willing to wait until Judgment Day for equality. We want it here on earth as well as in heaven. I get goosebumps again when I read it. How impactful that man's mind, as well as his heart, his courage, everything else. That quote right there, that one will never leave me. I mean, equality until Judgment Day. We want it here now. That's not just waiting till we get to heaven.
Yeah. I've studied Jackie for a long time. My wife attended the same high school. I got to show you this. I'm wearing it. John Muir High School is John Muir Mustangs. Jackie Robinson High School is where my wife attended. And it impacts that, of course, and living in Pasadena, where he was not treated well as a young man. His family traveled from rural Cairo, Georgia, to live in Pasadena. He was not treated well. His brother Mac, an Olympic hero, worked at school where he attended and where my wife attended, and my wife knew him. My wife is African American, white, and Native Indian American. My son played pro baseball, and he was always considered a black player.
Go figure.
Right. All of those things.
And very white Phil is his dad.
Right. And all of those things. And I've studied and researched the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King as well. And with Jackie and with Martin, both absolutely earth-shaking wives. Rachel, what she's accomplished in the 50 years since Jack passed away, and the same thing, Coretta, and what she accomplished immediately after Martin was assassinated. Um, Jackie has impacted our culture. He's touched a lot of people that are important to me and you. When he was playing for the Brooklyn Dodgers, the deaf community adopted him because he meant something to them. Carl Erskine, one of Jackie's teammates, when he retired, moved back to Anderson, Indiana. Carl had a special needs son and started Indiana Special Olympics. And in one of the first fundraisers, Jackie made the trip from his home in Connecticut back to Indiana to help Carl get that started. And they were obviously very close. And Carl has remarked oftentimes at the parallels in what he saw Jackie endure and what he's seen families endure with going on, getting laws changed to make things better for families that have special needs kids, which touches your life, my brother.
Absolutely, absolutely. The networking that's come from Jackie's stance and perseverance and courage, and who better to walk side by side at times than Pee Wee Reese?
Oh gosh.
No, and I think one of the comments I read was maybe someday we'll all wear 42 so they can't tell us apart. I mean, how good is that?
All right, now before we get to our guest, got to hear from you about the big event you had in Tampa for Prader-Willi syndrome and how Maddie's doing. Give us a quick update on the success of that big event.
10th anniversary of the Clint Hot Stove fundraiser in support of Prader-Willi syndrome. We had maybe our best event. It was a new venue. The Bradenton Country Club reached out and hugged us, Phil. They wanted to be a part of this. They were proud to be our host and have the opportunity. And 10 years in, we got a new band. We did some different things. We had 200 people show up. The music was great. We also had a keynote, a 5-minute keynote from one of our Prader-Willi young adults, a girl named Justice, that she stood up at the podium and she spoke. And one of the things that grabbed my heart and soul was, I want to say 6 years ago, her and Maddie were 15, and they were very similar in most areas. 15 going on 16, but going to be 12 in a lot of areas most of her life. Justice has catapulted into a sphere above where Maddie is. Maddie's a higher functioning Prader-Willi young adult. Justice has taken it to another level. She spoke at Washington. She's spoken to the Senate. She's very capable. You can still see some things, that go on that confuse her or she gets a little nervous with. But the steps that she's taken, the progress our entire association has gone through over the years, the way we've been able to help so many families and support so many, families that don't have the funds that we do to do good things. But we also did something that I had to ask for forgiveness on later on. The wonderful ladies that run the program with us, Leaving Legacies Foundation. Maddie's a big bingo player. And we've been playing bingo down at the club on Key Royale for about 2 years. Maddie's never won. And it got to a point where it became a little contentious. So I try and have fun with it. And I say, well, honey, biblically, Jesus got mad. He started flipping tables. And, Maddie has no filter. So one night it came out, if I don't win soon, I'm going to be flipping tables. Of course, Carla's got me by the ear, dragging me out the door. I'm trying to grab my daughter on the way. Anyway, she happened to win her first bingo game at another place at the center. And it was like, it was a walk-off. It was Bill Mazeroski's walk-off homer for Maddie and the people around her. But we'd already set up, we rigged a bingo game for the Hot Stove fundraiser. Halfway through it, because everybody's playing, there's 200 people in that playing. Halfway through it, I'm hearing some comments. Hey, wait a minute, your card looks like my card. Wait a minute, how come we're not getting any numbers? Rah, 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 rah. Maddie wins bingo, throws her hands up, bingo! Everybody screams. There's a big prize package that comes out. So I got to get up and act. And when I speak, I said, for all the mumbling I heard in the background, you guys want to talk about the bingo game, I'll meet you out in the parking lot in 5 minutes. We were blessed. God blessed us humbly, financially. And the part I like best about the way we do things, and I know we're not the only ones, fundraising's hard.
Yeah.
And people that tell me they love fundraisers, I go, God bless you. You're different, because I don't love it. And there's points when it just gets hard. and you know you're stalking, and you know people are going, oh, it's Hurdle again. Oh, can this guy just let me? So the fundraising part, yeah, I'm relentless early, but once we get everybody in the tent, it's a party and it's a celebration. It's just fun the rest of the evening. And we were able to pull that off again in spectacular fashion.
Well, I know, and this is our first opportunity to catch up about it because you've been so busy with that, and I've had my thing. Let's take a break now. We're going to introduce the conversation with our first guest on our Two Guys, Two Coasts podcast. He is Fred Stoeker, the co-author of the best-selling book Every Man's Battle, a series of books sold over 1 million copies, 30 different languages, and his recent book is Battle On, Battle Over. Here's our conversation. Joining us now is our guest, Fred Stoeker, from his home in Des Moines. Fred, thanks for hanging out with us.
Well, Fred, it's nice to meet you virtually. I guess my first curiosity, when you come up with your facts, because to be an expert, you've done some work, you've done some research. Obviously, this is a field that the only research I've done is through my growing up and my living,
right,
and my discovery or my inquisitive nature as a kid. And I think it's one road that every kid travels on. You know, when you start talking about sex, or you start talking, you see attractive women, or what gets your attention. But how do you all, or you in particular, how do you grab these numbers? How do these numbers pull the data that you're able to pull? That's when you can say approximately 63% of men and 55% of women watch porn regularly. How are those numbers pulled?
Honestly, I'm not the one that pulls those numbers. I mean,
I
there
figured you
are
didn't.
companies like George Barna and Focus on the Family that do those kinds of surveys. I personally, I do most of my research reading scientists, about how the brain reacts to porn and some of that sort of a thing, because I had a really strong problem with this. And there was a time where I would have done anything, read anything to get free. And it just stayed a really interesting thing to me because I knew I'd have to one day help my kids stay free. So I just find those books on the brain, on our sexuality to be very fascinating.
Well, no, that's very cool because they are fascinating because, in complete transparency, I can tell you that, I've looked at porn and I've gotten to a place where, first of all, I'm a man of addiction. So anything I pick up and stay with, it's got a good chance of latching on. I've had multiple challenges with addictions. And I mean, from anything from buying a shirt, like the shirt you have on, if I like that shirt, I'm going to go buy 5 of them just in different colors.
Well, you can have this one if you want. I mean,
I don't think it's going to fit. Maybe, I don't know what. Anyway, I find it interesting because, in complete transparency, I don't know. I have some history in masturbation. I have some history of looking at porn. I'm not going to sit here and throw shade. So I do get it, and I do know how I felt when the first time I picked up a Playboy magazine and started leafing through it. And of course, that was good for a while, and then, oh my gosh, there's a magazine called Penthouse. Well, that ratchets it up a little bit more. I mean, and then you just continue to ratchet up till you can get yourself into places that, actually where you got to look away.
And actually, with streaming porn now, Clint, you can actually get yourself into places where you're looking at things that you would have never conceived of on your own had that not been put before your face. I mean, some of these things are so gross and so far outside really what I would consider to be normal human experience that people are seeing things that no one's ever really seen.
I love the name of the book. I mean, Every Man's Battle and the series of them. It's spot on. And today I can't imagine, because you know what, back in the day, for me right now, the one thing we're dealing with in sport and I work with young people now as well.
Yes.
Our young players in rookie ball, they can be from 18 to 25 in the minor leagues. Most of them are in that age group. And porn, there's no doubt. But the other one's gambling. And I'm not trying to take us off court, but I do believe those two right now are the biggest crushers of young males that are out there, because there's not a game you can't bet on. I know high school kids at some of the places I go to, some of their coaches call me, they've caught them on their phones betting on the games, betting on other games. And then the porn thing, it's one click, it's here, or you can get click baited, you can get somewhat fooled into grabbing something and getting onto it. And it's kind of funny because, I used to say I'd be the guy that got fooled, but then I'd be fooled for about 5 minutes before I decided it wasn't good to be fooled anymore.
Right. No, I agree with that. And actually gambling, it's funny that you say that, because I was just reading an article tonight about Caitlin Clark and the ability to bet on her and her future. So, I mean, I can bet on whether she's going to have average 21 points a game next year. I can bet on how many 3-point shots she's going to make next year. And I just look at this and I go, who bets on this stuff? I mean, you're going to be sure to go broke. No one could possibly know those things. But the thing about it, Clint, is that the same dopamine release, the same kind of chemistry that comes through this kind of addiction is the kind we're talking about with porn and masturbation. And so addictions are pretty consistent in what they do in the brain. And really all of them, a person needs to dump them out of their life, or you never get to the point where you're living a life of full integrity, and you never get to the point where you're what would you say, your faith is fully mature. And what I found once I got loose from the sexual sin, I was able to really have my faith and my spiritual strength take leaps forward into places I never thought I would be, because I always thought I was kind of a loser because of that, what I called a perversion with my sexual sin. And once I got out of that, I realized I wasn't a loser at all.
Right. No, we're all saved by grace, and we all come short in so many different areas.
Yep.
And then in my own life, I'm on the side now where I battled through addiction. Phil may or may not have told you my story, but I'm a recovering alcoholic. And when you say, I can relate those feelings of, okay, I'm not going to do it today, and then after I've done it, going, what just happened? I did it again.
Yes.
There I am.
Boy, if I ever lived that, yes.
And it wasn't like, it wasn't the first thing I thought about when I got up in the morning, but it popped into my head at some time in the morning. And then you keep playing this game with yourself. No, I got this. No, no, I still got it. I'm halfway through the day. And then by 5 o'clock, I'm going, God, I'm a mess. Look at this. But today's, you used to have to sneak around to get porn. At least back when I was a kid, you had to sneak around. And then when you got it, you had to hide it. And now you may have to sneak around. I don't know. Do you sneak around on your phone? Not really. I mean, it's just boom, boom, and you're right there. And it's stuff that I couldn't imagine looking at when I was 12 or 13, but it's there. It's available. And I know it's real because as rough as I've, things I put myself through, two divorces, an alcohol addiction. I've caused a lot of collateral damage. In the last 10 years, I've had close to probably 10 guys reached out to me with this exact challenge right here, porn addiction. And I usually tell them, I can't, I understand. First of all, I can empathize to some degree, but I can't probably help you the places you need to be helped. But I can tell you what got me hooked, what caught me, what helped me get away, how I stay away. But the addiction part of it, as you said, it is so networked. I mean, it was a 12-step program for me, and I've talked to this guys, and once they get the counseling or they go where they need to go, it's a very similar step process that they've got to have a check and balance system. They've got to have accountability partners. They get to the point where they've got to come clean. There was a day when I wouldn't throw my phone to you and let you look at my phone. And now, my wife has my phone, my daughter has my phone. It's taken a long time, but I'm finally in that place where you can call free.
Yeah.
How did you find, what was the first time? Did you have a bottom? And when you hit that bottom,
yes.
Where did you go?
Well, it's a little hard to talk about it, but I mean, it's because you're going to get emotional when you think back to that moment. And I had been there were like 4 or 5 things that happened, boom, 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 that got my attention. Number one is the Holy Spirit was really getting after me on a couple of verses. Number one was Job 31:1. And that verse says, I have made a covenant with my eyes not to look lustfully at a girl. Well, and the thing is, if you go into Job 31:7, which is 7 or 8 verses later, it's very clear that he kept that promise. And when I would read that verse, I'd go, what in the world? How did he do that? And what's a covenant with the eyes? The other verse, which is even worse, Clint, was Luke 6:46. And that's where the Lord says, why do you call me Lord, Lord, and not do what I say? And oh my word, I mean,
Yeah.
I would get chased by that in my mind constantly. And anyway, so the Lord was working to get my attention, but then there was a moment where I was driving down Merle Hay Road in Des Moines, and a couple other things had happened, and I had kind of said to myself, I gotta quit this. I've got to quit this. You know, this is going to change my life if I just quit this. Well, then I looked at this jogger going by, and boy, she didn't have much on, and boy, did she look good. And I lusted in my mind. And then I just burst into tears. I slammed my fist into the steering wheel and I just started screaming, not like a guy that's scared, but I'm gonna win, kind of a thing. And I just slammed my fist in the steering wheel and said, I can't live like this anymore. I won't live like this anymore. I'm going to figure out how to make that covenant with my eyes, and I'm going to win if I die trying. Well, it was just that moment. I mean, Clint, I had tried to quit many times, even before I was saved. Even back at Stanford, I was hooked. But at that moment, I had fully engaged for the first time. And the great thing about that, Clint, is that when you fully engage, that's when the Holy Spirit can really come into your life and begin to reveal to you what you need to do. And it wasn't very long before he began teaching me the steps I had to take. And all of those steps are very practical. They're not, woo or
Right.
mystical. All you have to do is go into my book, Every Man's Battle, and by the time you close the cover, you'll know what to do. And that's the important thing.
Well, God, praise God. And I'm so happy that you found that freedom, because
Oh, yeah.
that old saying, the smallest package in the world is a man wrapped up in himself. And then on top of that, what we're wrapped up in.
Yes.
Because
And, I don't know if you know a guy named Ryan Pineda, but I was talking to him the other day, and I had just mentioned the phrase having sex with myself, which is another term I use for masturbation. And he just looked at me and he said, man, that sounds awful when you think about it in those terms, to have sex with yourself. Now, he wasn't saying that he had done anything or anything like that when he said that. He was just going, gosh, that's gross. And when you think back into your life and you think back, I mean, if you read my books, I pretty much am an open book, but I got to tell you, there's probably 2% I haven't put in there because it's so embarrassing to me.
Sure.
I can't even stand to write it down, let alone let you read it. Right.
Right. And God knows it.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing, is we walk through these muddy waters and the ditches we get ourselves, and then we try and hide them from everybody else.
Yeah.
He's just looking at us going, really?
Yeah, there's no bush big enough to hide behind on some of that stuff.
No.
I'm just grateful for grace, and the forgiveness is there. And once you get free, that's the real beautiful thing, because then God can promote you into new things. I mean, nobody ever thought Fred Stoeker was going to be an author. I mean, that just wasn't out there in anybody's thoughts. And yet here I am with 4 bestsellers, one that's a million seller. It's just crazy. But once he gets hold of your life, in the sense that you've surrendered and just said, look, I don't have to have all these other things. I just need you. Well, then you get to the point where he's got you where he wants you, and you're actually a servant and not just someone who's trying to look for good things from him.
All right,
there's
now,
one
guys, I'm weighing in here. So I'm going to set up a scenario.
Okay.
Now, Fred, Clint is a coach who coaches coaches. at
Yeah,
all levels.
I think that's an amazing job to have, Clint. Way to go.
And now you're going to coach the coach who coaches coaches on the next time someone he's traveling and someone in the baseball industry says, I'm sick of myself, I'm fed up. I need some simple advice. Please help. Don't tell anyone, but I need something from you
Oh,
right
yeah.
now. Fred, what's he say?
Well, first of all, let me just show you this book, Clint, because I don't know if you've seen this one. You've seen Every Man's Battle, but this is my latest book. It's called Battle On, Battle Over. And what I discovered in my own battle, Clint, was that there are actually a lot of sexual things that drive sexual sin, like porn, streaming porn, all that. A girl walking by in the string bikini, all those things, okay? But there are a number of things that literally drive sexual sin that are non-sexual. And that's where guys really get trapped, especially baseball players. I've talked to a number of minor league baseball players about this very thing. And this is what I asked them. I said, okay, I'll tell them, okay, some triggers of sexual sin are actually non-sexual, and I'll explain a little bit about it. And then I will say to them, okay, what was it like? Because one of them was a pitcher. What was it like when you would go out and get shelled for, 8 runs in 3 innings? And what was it like to go back to your hotel room that night? Well, what he said was, you just feel like the biggest loser. You think you might be losing your career. You feel like you don't even want to face the next day. And I would say, okay, what would you do then? And he would say, invariably, I would masturbate. And the thing is, when you masturbate, that brings a medication that soothes that wound, that stress, that pain. And what a coach has to do for someone like that who has come to him and said, hey, what do I do? The first thing, of course, is they've got to get educated. So they read a book like Battle On, Battle Over, so they can understand how non-sexual triggers can create the sexual sin, because most guys don't make that connection and it's foggy to them. But once they understand that, then they are free, because those non-sexual triggers cannot trip them up again. I was talking to a guy about that once, and he said, Fred, once you told me about non-sexual triggers, it has completely taken the fear out of my heart when it comes to my sexual sin, because now when I have a lot of stress at work and I feel these sexual cravings, I just say to myself, those aren't even sexual cravings. Those are non-sexual triggers. I don't have to do this. And he can turn away so easily. I've talked to players that are just, they might have a couple of errors in a game that just kind of blow the game wide open for their teammates and lose. And it's that same sort of thing. So what I've always taught, for instance, my sons, from very early on, that they need to understand that they need to take that pain, that stress, those wounds to the Lord instead of to porn, where they can get medication.
This is fascinating.
Have you ever heard any of your players talk about that, Clint, where they feel like the time where it's the biggest weakness for them is after they've had a rotten game, not a good one, for instance?
Yes, I've got one player it's ongoing, and I've got a former player, very good friend, that's ongoing. What are the non-sexual triggers? I'm fascinated. I don't want you to give away,
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I'm happy to share some. I
I'm
mean,
going to buy
I feel
I'm going to
like,
buy the books. This is
yeah, the book
fascinating,
is,
and I knew.
yeah, by the time you're done through the first 2 chapters, you'll know it inside and out. But for instance, father wounds, okay? My dad was a very rough guy towards me. He was a national champion and AAU heavyweight champion wrestler, okay?
Wow.
And he always wanted me to be a wrestler. And about ninth grade, I quit. I just wanted to play football and baseball. Well, he never forgave me. And he never said, He loved me. He never said, "You're a man, Fred. You belong here in this world of men, shoulder to shoulder." And that used to really crush me. And I would use, and then he would come to not just my games, my practices, and just any mistake I made, rip me up. And until my teammates hated his guts. But the thing is that that created a lot of woundedness in me, a lot of shame in me that I would use to medicate. And I never put those two together. Then another one would be financial stress. This is very common, where, you know, back then when I was a young father and, you know, I had a couple of kids and I was in full commission sales and I was just trying to make it in the world of men and, you know, was having trouble making ends meet. Full commission sales is not for the faint-hearted. And what happened was when I really began to look at my life, I realized that I was tended to be still masturbating on the nights where my financial stress was the worst. And so what I began to do is take that to the Lord in prayer and turn my business and finances over to him. And it began to weaken that very quickly. And the thing is that when I was feeling just like, I'm no good, I'm a loser, I'm not much of a man, that's again when I would masturbate. Because Clint, when you really look at what an orgasm does in a man's heart, it actually literally provides the feeling of false intimacy and false connection, but it's a genuine draw to a guy who feels lonely, disconnected, in pain. And so an orgasm can really be a draw when a guy is feeling worse about himself. And so, but if you think about it, you know, financial stress, there's nothing sexual about that, right? I mean,
Oh,
it's not a sexual trigger.
no, that makes a lot of sense, and there's so much commonality, you know, with the
Oh yeah.
addictive of what happens.
I would be
And
fascinated, Clint, after you read the first couple chapters of Battle On, Battle Over. I would be fascinated to have another conversation with you because I'd like to see how you would compare your alcoholism with this addiction. And I'll bet you there's a ton of non-sexual triggers when it comes to alcoholism as well.
yeah, there are, and it becomes down to, you know, the challenge I would always have, in any of the things that, you know, especially with my alcohol addiction, I felt less than. I'd compare, you know, and if I didn't win the game on the field, I needed to win the game after the game, you know.
Yes.
I had to find a win somewhere, and it's so sad that the win would come down to, you know, getting hammered, or you know, in the case of or watching porn, or you know, for those people that want to grab a drug to medicate to numb themselves temporarily, because there is a temporary satisfaction. Okay, you don't feel all that angst, you don't feel the anxiety, you don't feel the loser mentality until it wears off and you're right back where you started from, but worse. For me.
You know, that I couldn't have said it better myself. That was really good, Clint. And that is the basis of the non-sexual trigger. And the way you said it, you're looking for a win. You had the loss in the day. Now you're looking for a win, something to make you feel good about yourself. And I really do feel like that's the concept behind it. And I didn't figure I would talk about it for very long before you knew exactly what I was talking about. Yeah, I just was
This is crazy, and it's
I
so
was just
cool
using
because
different words, right?
we are, and
Yeah.
the crazy part of it, it's a God wink as well, because God through Phil connected us.
Yes.
Had this master plan that God's put in his lap for a while. There's no doubt. I've been reading from Nancy. He's been, you know, the things he's been sending out. I knew he set me up. I knew I knew he had an ambush here somewhere.
Yes.
And the last thing I thought I would be talking about this afternoon in Spokane, Washington, was masturbation and porn with an
Yes.
expert. And I can't wait to call my wife tomorrow and say, honey, I did one a podcast. And she'll say, okay, which ball player did you talk to? And I go, haha, guess what I got beaten down
Well,
today.
Charlotte, don't hurt me. Don't hurt
yeah,
me.
No.
Please, don't.
you just tell her Fred Stoeker, the ball player, because I did used to play ball, and you can kind of squeak out of it. But
But look, it makes us it makes us a better husband. It makes us a better father. It makes us
Oh,
a
it
better
does.
friend. It gives us another opportunity to be the best version of ourselves. And
Oh, yes.
my wife knows my warts. And she knows all the warts. You know, it'd be like me telling her, well, I never went to a strip club. And she just looked at me like, really? Yeah, really? No, I never masturbated to porn.
Oh,
Really?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, right. Um,
I like your wife already.
she's something. But I mean, but this is making me grow. Another thing, one of my words 2 years ago, I pick a word every year, and instead of resolutions, I grab a word.
Okay.
And 2 years ago, my word grow. I didn't want to let the old man in. I watched the movie The Mule. I listened to Toby Keith's song. I've got a 19-year-old son now who was younger at that time, a 21-year-old special needs daughter. I've got an older daughter that moved back home from Texas to get close to my mom and dad. There's so many cataclysmic things that were cool working on in my life. However, I was 65 and out of ball for 3 years. Yes, I'm back in a little bit, but it's different. I didn't want to just settle. And I'm thankful my wife has pushed me, but my son pushed me. And my word was grow. And I look back now 2 years ago from writing grow on a ball to where what's happened in the last year and a half, all the things I've walked through, having this conversation. I'm on the brink, on the edges. I'm writing a book right now at my age. The first time out. Yeah, it's exciting. But I found different ways to get the excitement that I used to seek through all the other ways.
That's what, listen, Clint, that's what men do. I mean, once you rise up and you get rid of all that junk, then you can truly be a man and fight the great battles and live the great adventures. That's what you're doing.
And isn't it great to really find out what the definition of manhood is? Because I had other people's, I had my own, I had, guys I thought I was cool. And really, I've gotten to a better place as a manager, but I can remember early in my managerial career in Pittsburgh, we brought in Joe Ehrman, who wrote the book Inside Out Coaching, which talks about masculinity and toxic masculinity. And it was the first time he peeled back some layers for me that I was like, oh my, I did that. No, oh my gosh. Yeah, that happened to me. Or maybe some actions that I had, could have put another player or coach in an awkward or difficult position. And then just growing up to be a man, what it means biblically to be a man, what it means biblically to be the husband, what it means biblically to be the father and the friend. And
it clears everything up when you have a really good definition, doesn't it? Because anything that you have to decide on, you can just go, well, this either fits the definition or it doesn't. And you can just either walk away or throw your whole heart into it, right?
Absolutely. Phil, I need you to come in. I got to take a break here. I'm getting goosebumps on my arms here. I don't know whether it's the caffeine or it's talking to Fred.
Well, fellas, we could do this for another half hour, easy. Fred, you could see we're very grateful for you joining us. We're going to say thank you and let you go.
Okay.
Fred, author of Every Man's Battle series of books, co-author, and his most recent book is Battle On, Battle Over. Fred, thanks for hanging out with us.
Oh, I've really enjoyed it. And can we do this again soon?
Fred, we need to, because I need to get the book and then I need to go through it. You and I could really, I think that'd be a really impactful conversation that you and I could have.
I agree.
What kind of commonalities are.
I'm all over it, Clint. So we'll get back together soon.
Anyway,
thanks to both of you.
Thank you very much.
Clint, one of my favorite things about our conversation with Fred was to see you go ahead and take it and run with it. In fact, I think that's one of the things that I'm supposed to do with this is just go ahead and tee it up for you, get some guests in here and let you go. I'm as fascinated hearing you and Fred talk as much more so than being a part of it. Well done, Clint. Very well done.
I had no idea. You told me to roll with it, my curiosity, and that was as authentic and as organic a conversation as you could ever want to have.
That was beautiful. And then before we introduced Fred, you talked about fundraising for PW. And as a missionary, I am also a fundraiser, because if you're not a fundraiser, you're not a missionary for very long. and I was warned when I took this step, and I just the work I do is so rewarding to minister to men, to be a missionary to men. I've been doing it now really for about 20 years, 15 years, week to week, day to day. I really enjoy what I do. But the fundraising has been an education. And I'm okay with that because that's part of the responsibility. And Clint, one of the things that we've had to catch up on is I recently led a men's event in our area of LA with 25 guys, mostly friends, in the backyard of another friend. And then 2 days later, I got on a plane, flew to Tulsa, 250 guys from all over the world, a large scale men's ministry event called Summit with Influencers Global Ministries. Again, boy, so rewarding. That's why I love hearing about what you and Carla did and what accomplished with the event, because it's just wonderful to hear. We know the hard work. You and I know the hard work that goes behind these things. It is no easy thing, and that's okay. One of the current phrase, we can do hard things, Clint. We can do hard things.
We can and we are. And for me, I guess I'd like to ask you. So you had how many in the backyard? 20?
25 guys. We grilled out brats, sausages, hot dogs, and had a massive pot of very hot, spicy chili. We did a guy event. It was wonderful.
FCA for the high school kids, you take pizza. For men, you take chili and you barbecue brats. That's really smart. And then you go to Tulsa for 250 men. And wasn't it amazing that the challenges, the praises, the problems were the same in California as they were in Oklahoma so many times?
It's amazing. We had two big events where things just came unglued in the best possible way, with men submitting and saying, I want more of Jesus. I need more of him with me right now. That's why I came here. And to see guys serve each other, to see guys come along and be true brothers in Christ, very rewarding to me. People ask, why would you ever be a missionary to men? And the answer is, I saw really bad examples of what it's like to be a guy growing up, my father and another family member. And I saw a really good example of what to be like, my late brother and the kind of man he was. And I wanted to get in the middle of that. Happy to do that. And people say, well, then what caused you to become? I said, pain. Pain is
Yeah.
what got me headed in this direction. Oh,
We jokingly can say we get in the middle, but when we found out we were going to be in the middle, but both arms were going to be extended and people were going to be pulling on both of them, that's really when you're in the middle.
amen to that, my brother. Clint, we should have Fred back. And he's available anytime. He's read some of what we do. As much as he's had impact and he's had dramatic impact in North American culture at the front line of sex, I really enjoyed seeing what you've been able to accomplish on social media over the last 2 to 3 months. Keep that up. It's beautiful.
Well, thank you. And there's not, I get some help on the Instagram and the Facebook. I've reached out to some people that know the landscape better than I do. All the things I do on X, that's organic, raw, authentic Clint. That's Clint learning. That's Clint growing. That's Clint trying to reach out and encourage. And I'm learning more about what not to do than to do, because I can tell you this, for as many conversations that I engage in, I walk away from 3 times that.
Oh, really?
I've never hit leave the conversation button so many times, mute the conversation, but I finally figured out how to use them. And that was an epiphany in and of itself. I mean, I can actually make these people go away. They don't just keep popping up in my thread because somebody tagged me. And sometimes it's humbling and it's honoring to be tagged. And sometimes they're tagging me for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, let's wrap this thing up. What a wonderful opportunity for us to sit down and talk, catching you in the midst of your travels and me after a couple of big events and before a couple more. We're grateful to our guest, Fred Stoeker, for hanging out with us. Clint, we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Phil. It is very good to see you. And let's see if we can get back on track with a little more continuity here soon.